Hi, today we've got Gary Loveless with us, who is a self-employed financial advisor. And Gary's going to tell us about how he got into what he does now. Gary, how did it all start?
Yeah, hello, Clive. Hi, Kerry. Yeah, thanks for talking to me today. How did it all start? Well, for me, it started about 30 years ago. Not doing exactly what I'm doing, but working for a big insurance company in Salisbury. Got involved in the sort of pension processing administration side of it. Found it a little bit dull after a few years, and decided that I'd rather be out and about seeing people. So I became a financial advisor with Prudential. And I think probably our generation would remember the man from the Pru, just about, which wouldn't be allowed nowadays, would it? Man from the Pru. Quite rightly so.
But you were the man from the Pru.
Well, I was, yes, sort of a man from the Pru, because the traditional man from the Pru used to go around collecting the money from the doors for people in their 10-year savings plan, that sort of thing, collecting 50p a week and writing it up in a book. I didn't actually ever do that part. I just, those collectors used to set up appointments for me to talk to people about their finances. Which I enjoyed for 10 years with Prudential. Saw hundreds and hundreds of clients really through the 1990s, which is giving my age away a bit. Yeah, it was a great company, really enjoyed working for it. But unfortunately, all the cost of compliance that came through as the 1990s went on, Prudential decided to make 10,000 of its field force out seeing people, the collectors and the advisors, to make us all redundant at the turn of the century. So then it was a case of looking around, really, what did I want to be my next step? And at that time, there was a lot of work going on in the pensions world, looking at past business. I don't know if you remember it, the past pension review in the early 2000s. So I got involved in that. And over the next 15 years, I've done a lot of compliance work, which is basically checking the quality of business that comes in from advisors, and where it's not correct, dealing with a complaint or redressing the client to put them back in the financial position they would have been in. So there's been a lot of that going on over the last 15 years, really. So you had the pension review, the endowment review, and culminating in probably the biggest one of the lot, which was I'm sure everybody's heard about, is the PPI review. I'm sure we've all had phone calls and messages from PPI companies offering you the opportunity to sort of claim back on a previous bit of business that was done. So,
yeah, lots of those.
I think we've definitely had those. And I guess what's interesting there is that these days, there's lots of redundancies. It happens on a frequent basis. People don't stay in businesses now for 20, 25 years, as certainly they used to. So it's great to hear that you then went freelance from that. I guess from a career of seeing lots of people, what have you been doing for the last 7 or 8 weeks? How have you had to adapt during this time?
Yeah, I've been back advising for the last 2 years, really, sort of building up my client base. So really over the last 7 or 8 weeks, the first couple of weeks, I think, was a bit of a shock for everybody, really, scrabbling around, what are we going to do? But I used the time to really catch up on all my administration. And then we do something called continued professional development, which means you have to do between 50 and 100 hours study a year in your subject, and evidence that you do it, usually by taking tests and exams. So I've been making sure that is all up to date. But probably the key component over the last sort of month or so is keeping in touch with all my clients, talking them through the situation, how it's affected their investments and their pension values. And a lot of them have seen significant drops, say between 10%, some of them, depending on how risky they're invested. If it's a fairly safe investment, bonds and fixed interest, that sort of thing, then it probably hasn't moved much. But if it was all invested in equities, in company shares, then you would have seen a significant drop off. between probably 10 and 25%. And obviously, if somebody's got money invested in their pension, that's a significant change. And it's just really reassuring them that if you look back over the last 25, 30 years, we've been here in this similar situation many times before. And if you take a chart over that period, say, for example, looking at the FTSE 100, it's constantly up and down, usually in a slight incline. And these jags down or up tend to be only temporary. If you go back to 2008, which was the last sort of calamitous period for investments, we saw a significant drop. The FTSE actually dropped from over 7,000 to about 3,500. But within a year after that, it was pretty much on the way back, and within 18 months, 2 years, it's continued to climb, and people who invested then when it was low have done very well from it.
Yeah.
It's just a case of reassuring people really that, this situation will only be temporary. So don't take your money out at this time and put it somewhere safer, because the trouble is you'll want to go back in and reinvest it at some point. And to time that at the right time is very, very difficult. And you'll probably end up losing money if you do that. So just stay invested, stay calm if you can, unless you desperately need the money from it. And things will come good again. So.
And I can see how that advice will be very reassuring to people, especially now.
Yes.
What's really interesting is that you highlight an element that school doesn't finish for you, because you've got to do exams every year to keep up with your profession and keep on board. So it's a good lesson to people at school. Sometimes school never finishes. But I guess as we sit here now, what for the future? What are you going to have to change for the future, because the social distancing is going to be with us for a prolonged period of time? Any things that you've got or strategies you've got to go differently for the future?
Yeah, very, very much so, Clive. I mean, traditionally, it's been a face-to-face business. People like to see you face-to-face, to meet you, shake hands with you, and also so you can sit beside them and run through the plans that they have at present, what protection plans they have, what pension, investment, savings, talk about their ISAs and that sort of thing, what they're invested in. And that's much easier sat side by side with somebody. But obviously we can't do that at the moment. So what we've been doing, and I'm not the best at this, and there's people much better at it than me, that you actually can use things like Skype, Zoom, GoToMeetings. I heard about another one this morning called Sweetbox, SUITE box. I've never heard of it, but apparently you can show a 30-page document on it to somebody at the other end of the line. It's a case of understanding all these tools are available and using them. And I've had a few younger clients, and I say younger, under 60, who are happy to use that. And what I found is my older clients really would rather say, well, can we wait a few months and hopefully see you then? But I think there may be the case that we won't be able to see them then. And possibly in 6 months' time, we won't be able to see them face to face. We just don't know. So from my point of view, it's going to be very much using these tools and kind of maybe educating some of my older clients that they can use them as well. But maybe I'm not the best person to teach them because it's not my area of expertise, technology. But then again, sometimes if you don't have a massive understanding of it yourself, you'll explain it in simpler terms. Whereas somebody who has all the knowledge may make it a bit too jargon-filled, their explanation, and people won't understand it. So that's got to be the way forward. But I think even if we did go back to what was the old normal, that some of what we've taken on board now will actually be a better way of doing things. Because one of the things we have to do is every year, anybody who invested money through us or into a pension, we have to do an annual review. And what that is just basically a half an hour, 45-minute catch up, see where we were last year, how are things going now, asking if their circumstances have changed. Is there any reason that their attitude to the risks they're prepared to take with investing has changed? They might have inherited some money, or they might have lost some money or paid off some debts, and so their attitude slightly changes. And then you maybe adjust the underlying investment. But what we found is that is really successful over things like Zoom and GoToMeetings, because that sort of shorter visit, half an hour, 45 minutes, if your client is an hour and a half's drive away, that's most of a day that is gone in that. But in this scenario, you could do 4 or 5 a day. And that's what a lot of us have been doing. So that a time saving, I could be significant as we go forward.
Well, yeah, that's and that adaptability to change in light of things that change now for the moving forward. So, thank you very much for talking to us today. We wish you luck with your new normal, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Clive. Thank you, Kerry. Lovely to talk to you.
You too.